In Afghanistan and its capital city, shaking up tens of thousands of people who live right here in the Bay Area. The East Bay is home to the largest number of Afghan Americans in the country, and that is why Representative Eric Swalwell has been very vocal about the need to help families here reunite with their loved ones who live in Afghanistan. Representative Swalwell joins us live right now. Thank you very much for your time, Congressman. What have you been hearing from your constituents about the situation?
It's heartbreaking for them. It's heartbreaking for me to watch their country essentially buried by the enemy and the Taliban. And while there will be a time to debate, how this could have been done differently, the urgency right now to get people out is the priority. And so my office is working night and day for anyone eligible to help them get out. And I would just add that from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock today at 20990 Redwood Road, our immigration attorneys stand ready to help any local families in Castro Valley. 20990 Redwood Road, Castro Valley. We're here to help.
2099 Castro Valley. We'll put that up on cron4.com. Thank you very much for giving this. And what are they trying to do to help those people who have family members, those that are eligible, correct?
Yeah, 20990 Redwood Road in Castro Valley. And what we're doing is there's a priority that the State Department has right now for people who can leave. So Americans obviously come first, embassy staff as well, but also Afghan Americans who were interpreters for the U.S. military, members of the press who may be targeted by the Taliban, women and children who may have worked with the U.S. government or with non-governmental organizations. Those are the priorities right now. And if people have filed visa applications, what we can do is work to see where those applications are and what we can do to get those folks processed in Kabul and here to America.
And that's what I was going to say. So you're offering the special immigrant visas for families?
Well, they have had to have already applied, and if they have not applied yet and they have a case, we can start working that up immediately. Look, I've talked to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense yesterday on a conference call, and they referenced that there may be a streamlining of some of these applications. So we want everyone to be as prepared as possible. So if you have a case to make, please make that case now, and we can help you make it with the State Department.
Do we have any idea of the volume of people that we're talking about that are there at the office right now, or how many people are we talking about that are in this category?
Just for our office, it's about 100 people who are over in Afghanistan who have already filed cases. Now, we have a number of people in addition to that who believe they are eligible, and what we're trying to do is to direct them to the place where they can file if they are eligible. It's my hope that as the U.S. government looks at people on the ground in Kabul and is able to safely secure the airport, that we would evacuate first and then verify later, that we would not leave a single person there who claims that they had helped the U.S. military. I'd rather verify later and be wrong than to leave them there and be wrong, because that could be fatal to anyone who's left behind.
Without a doubt. I mean, we saw the just heartbreaking scene where the military jet was lifting up and people sadly plunging to their deaths. Is this a time to reflect on what went wrong, or is this a time more to wrap our arms around those people to help get them out?
Well, it's a policy that has gone through 4 presidencies, and I don't believe anyone who's being honest would say that the last day in Afghanistan would look anything other than like this, a tragedy. And I think it also reaffirms that had we stayed 20 more years and spent billions of more dollars and lost thousands of more troops, that the Afghan army, despite all the capabilities, was just not going to have the will to fight and defend the country. And so that is a very hard reality. But I think a second spent debating whose fault this was is a second we're not spending opening our arms and helping the families who are going to be coming into our community having left everything and bringing almost nothing.
I know that the International Committee of the Red Cross warns that thousands are being wounded in the fighting. I mean, it is really a battlefield right there.
It's so sad and heartbreaking. And we have to make it clear that when the dust settles, that we are not going to look the other way on Afghanistan, that we will again work with international allies to make sure that human rights abuses are not taking place in that country, and that there will be penalties if they are discovered. But sadly, I think we have seen in the last few days that an ongoing troop presence for 20 plus years was not going to help resolve a civil conflict in Afghanistan. And the best thing we can do is to help those who helped us and get them to America as soon as possible.
Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said that U.S. forces killed 2 people he described as they were carrying weapons into the melee. I mean, if you dive deeper into this, I mean, it is troubling on so many fronts. What do you think we're going to hear from the president coming up? He's going to be speaking Pacific time, 12:45 today.
Well, I think he's going to give us a clear-eyed, honest assessment of what's going on, but also I hope he challenges every American to stand ready with open arms, open minds, and open hearts to receive these refugees, because we've done this in the Bay Area. We are, the landing place for so many Afghan Americans, and I hope that we are a model to the rest of the country as to what it's going to take to help these families who have suffered so much, and will be looking to us as to whether we're welcoming and can help them in this time of need.
And I mean, we also have to reflect back on what led us to this point. I mean, it was May 1st that former President Trump had said that we needed to leave. So it wasn't like this is just out of the blue, this decision to leave Afghanistan.
And when President Trump did that, he also freed thousands of Taliban fighters. And this administration was faced with this prospect, which was the Taliban said that after May 1st this year, they were going to re-engage with U.S. forces. We had a small security presence there. So if they re-engaged, we would have to plus up significantly the amount of troops who'd be deployed to Afghanistan. And again, that raises the question of, is it worth another dead American soldier to occupy a country where you have this ongoing civil conflict? I don't think it was. And I think, though, the priority right now has to be to get women and children and the interpreters who helped us on the battlefield out and into a safe place.
I was listening to Liz Cheney talk yesterday on some of the Sunday morning talk shows, and she was very critical of the administration. She had mentioned that this is all unfolding as the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. How do you balance the two? The initial reason why we went into Afghanistan, the complexities of that country, and the history of that area as the anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, it's a hard anniversary to face for the families, especially in the Bay Area, who had loved ones, and we have some in the Bay Area. But I also believe we stayed too long in Afghanistan. And as I said, this day was never going to be a day worth celebrating leaving Afghanistan. It was always going to be a very hard day, knowing that the Taliban would likely retake the country. And the best thing we can do right now is to just help those who helped us. And if the Taliban allows their country again to be a launching pad for terrorism, we should not allow that to happen. But I think we should also learn the lessons of occupying a country for a protracted period of time, and that in the end, it's always going to look as tragic as it looks right now.
Do you think that there's anything else? Is there any lessons learned? Is there anything else that you would kind of drive home the point to those people watching? And, you know, as I mentioned, the history of the conflict in that country dates back decades, if not longer. Right, exactly, centuries. So, I mean, if you have any grasp of history, what would you say, though, to people looking at this, looking at the video now with kind of a narrow focus on what's happening now, but not understanding the history of that country?
Yeah, I would say we cannot turn our back on those who helped us, or the women and children who are essentially on Front Street and in harm's way. But we should also learn the lesson that what happened over there was the result of us occupying the place for far too long. And, you know, that tragically led to the results that we saw today. So again, we have to stand ready to defeat terrorism wherever it is, but that doesn't necessarily mean the massive footprint that we had in Afghanistan or Iraq. And, you know, if you listen to some of the critics of the Biden administration, they would have us in Vietnam still today, where it was a mistake to stay there as long as we did. We had to leave. But I don't think just because you are there for a certain amount of time, in economics, that's called a sunk cost. Just because you were there and invested doesn't mean you keep staying there and staying invested if you shouldn't have been there that long in the first place.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your time. We know that you're very busy. We'll make sure that we get the address. Can you say the address again there on Redwood?
20990 Redwood Street in Castro Valley.
And you have people there that are helping with visas. Explain that again.
Yeah, again, at 20990 Redwood Road, our staff are helping any Afghan Americans who have family members in Afghanistan with outstanding visa applications.
Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.